Hi, my name is Mark Biernot, and I am a PhD candidate, and my expertise is specifically in monetary economics, with even more specification being aggregate price level movements, that is inflation and deflation and interest rates. And I've studied this, just to flex a little bit, I've studied this for quite a while, not only in graduate school, but in my PhD studies. So I think I have a little bit of expertise, and the question here is, why isn't the Federal Reserve or any central bank in the world pursuant of a deflationary aggregate price policy? Why shouldn't we have aggregate price deflation? It makes sense. When prices go down, I pay less oil, gas, food, money goes a further way with consumption good or my house payment. Why wouldn't we want deflation? It's a mystery. And without getting too conspiracy-ish, we can go back to the date of 1914 and around there when the Federal Reserve was created. The pursuant policies always use the language of price stability, but that has an addendum of 2 to 3% inflation, or in this case, 4 to 5 to 6% if we need it. But why isn't this deflation pursued? Look, here's a book, and it's called The Myth of the Great Depression, 1873, 1896. It's a study that when prices decreased on an index from 200 to 125 in this time period, there was an increase in real wages from 100 to 200 in terms of real wages. So I think this study gives a lot of evidence, empirical evidence, even though it's in the past, that a pursuant deflationary policy would not be harmful and probably be positive. It's very hard to get evidence currently because if you look at the studies on Google Scholar, most, if not all, central banks pursue inflation. Second piece of evidence, Knut Wicksell, 1898, wrote a book, Interest and Prices. He initially thought we should have price stability, zero inflation. This would be the money macroequilibrium, which is the optimal growth of the economy. But in this same book, which everybody ignores, as an appendix, he wrote in 1924, towards the end of his life, that a pursuant deflationary policy would not be out of the question. This comes from a discussion he had with a Swedish economist, David Davidson, over his lifetime. And they both agreed, it was a concession on Wicksell's part, that changes in productivity could affect the aggregate price level. I'll give you an example. YouTube. YouTube is a technology platform which allows for the proliferation of the quantity of streaming or visual visual content that we all can watch. Think about before YouTube and go back 50 years, 30 years, and we had to go to the movie theater. Maybe we could buy a VCR DVD disc. Think how much the quantity of streaming has increased. And so technology has this magical pixie dust phenomena of increasing the quantity of everything, goods and services provided. If you know basic economics, when goods and services increase, the price level falls. And if you try to distort that falling of the price level, because an increased quantity, let's assume a constant demand or an slight increasing demand, but we know that technology increases exponentially faster than demographics, and that's another conversation for another video. To distort or stop this falling will distort the natural equilibrium of the market and create a non-optimal growth trajectory. So why doesn't the Federal Reserve pursue a money macroequilibrium based on empirical evidence and logical evidence by some great economists from 100 years ago? There was great debates. After Keynes, they jettisoned this idea, but it really came down to, if they pursue a deflationary policy, which in my opinion would be optimal, the roads would be paved with gold in the United States, rather than bumpy asphalt and disrepair, then their debt, the cost of debt of the U.S. government would increase just by the fact that the debt in the United States is kind of like a variable rate credit card. When you increase the interest rate, the interest on that debt goes up and the U.S. government owes more, there's more financial pressure. Now, again, do I believe there's some secret Kabbalah and conspiracy-esque, powers that be that control everything? No, I don't believe that. I personally don't believe that. I think it's not this conscious collective choice. I think that they kind of are just feeling their way through it and making this choice based on the tradition of a 2 to 3% target, defining that as price stability, even though economic theory and economic evidence would debate that, and there's strong evidence to say deflation, probably why not set a 2 to 3% deflationary target? So I don't go as far as saying there's some Kabbalah of people in power that would like to control. I don't agree with that. That's conspiracy-esque. And, you have the right to disagree. You can leave it in the comments below. But I do believe that there is a kind of implicit agreement between the Federal Reserve and Congress that if we can keep interest rates fairly low, we can keep debt pressure down. And this in and of itself has some intrinsic benefit for the economy, because a defaulting U.S. government would not be good for the economy. So maybe there is some argument that goes in that line of thinking. But for me, there is no reason we should not pursue a deflationary monetary goal. If we had something like the gold standard, I think you would see that. I think you'd see mild, healthy deflation. And again, people say, well, deflation might cause, business owners disprofit, or because consumers are not going to spend. Well, that's not true, because business owners look at profit margin always, and margin is the key indicator and not the nominal price level. And consumers look at the things that they need, and even if they saved more, then isn't that better because more money goes into the savings investment pool? So why don't we pursue this deflationary policy? Why is it that the stranglehold on money by the central banks around the world make us pursue an inflationary policy? That's a question. I mean, if I believe in democracy, and I believe that we need to work this out through the democratic process. And I think as political pressures for the debt ceiling, we're always kicking the can down the road, get more intense, and they will, as the narrowing avenue of opportunity. It's like driving down a road that gets more narrow and narrow and narrow. I think at some point this will pop up again in the political discourse. And my vote is for a deflationary monetary policy. Thank you very much.